That edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Got a little soft opening going here. Watching the final minutes of the Florida-Kentucky game. As expected, Kentucky winning, but not without a fight. We'll talk about that in a moment. Coming up on the show tonight, David Moulton. We'll get him to weigh in on a number of subjects, including the rule changes and a few other things going on, like who is going to be the defensive coordinator for these Florida Gators. My goodness, things just keep on changing. So we'll address that issue and many others tonight. Also, Kyle Curtis on the program, and we'll wrap it up with Zach Abolverdi, who was scheduled to come on earlier, but because of basketball, will be coming on at the end of the show to talk about the coaching change. So stay tuned. Tell your friends and neighbors as you watch the end of the game that the Buddy Martin Show is now on the air. We want you to join us. We want your opinions and your thoughts. Stay tuned. Tell your friends and neighbors.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. The program is heard 4 nights a week here on the station right here in beautiful Ocala, Florida. Monday through Thursday, we talk mostly Gator sports, sometimes other things, and depends on the guest. If we have someone who's esteemed, there's David Moulton, and we spread it out a bit and talk about things tonight. And as the Florida Gators are, well, they closed it up a little bit. Really kind of a gallant effort they made tonight without their star player. Castleton, and they actually don't trail only by 4 against Kentucky with about 1:23 to go. Times in the game they led, which surprised me, especially halftime. Ronnie Kugel made some nice shots and made some threes, but Oscar Shue just too much. So let's do this. Let's get right to the commercial, thanking the people who sponsored the program. And in the green room, now the orange and blue room, is the esteemed David Moulton standing by. Can't wait to talk to David about some of the things like the rules changes and who in the world will the Florida Gators get for a defensive coordinator? We got a name and we know a person, but who is this guy, Armstrong? We'll talk about that and other things. First, this message from Jeffrey Meldon.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
All right, thanks very much, Jeffrey Meldon. And let's go right over there to the Orange and Blue Room right now and talk to our good friend David Moulton. We always love having him because he's brought to you by a special sponsor, the folks at TitanMR.com, and I'll tell you more about that later. But first, let's go get David while we got him, and he's on earlier tonight than usual. Great one. Good evening to you, Dave.
How are you, buddy?
I made a mistake and called you Dave. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
It worked for Letterman. I mean, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he went by David, but most everybody called him Dave.
Yeah, right. Good to talk. How are things in North Florida these days? Not sure in North Floridian. Well, it is
warm.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, it's so weird, isn't it? Like if you watch the evening news and you see that over 100 million people in this country are in the depths of winter. I got off the phone right before this with my best friend who's in Colorado. He said it's -1 right now. I said, yeah, it's about 85 degrees warmer than that where we are. He's like,
yeah.
I don't know why I call you.
Well, God will get you for that because, and I moved from New York to Colorado. I was so tired of standing on the platform waiting for trains. It was 10 degrees in my overcoat and stuff. I was like, I can't wait to get to Colorado where it rarely snows. When it does, it's over with because they have their own solar system, and I said, I go out there. I said, so we get to play golf in February. And I moved out there and I did. And of course, what happened that year in the fall in September? A big blizzard in September. And my friends said, yeah, what about that Colorado, that, buddy boy? So it's kind of a bragging rights thing. Well, David, did you watch any of the Florida Kentucky game, which is now about to wrap up? It's
I
77-72.
I was watching, yes, a tremendous end of the first half for the Gators,
Yeah.
inspiring. And but yeah, I mean, when you lose your best player, it's quite frankly, without them, they're not a tournament
Oh,
team.
really?
And
No, of
so
course not. No.
they were not a tournament team with them, but
Yeah.
they were approaching the bubble.
Yeah.
But now it's it's a lost cause.
Yeah, and I got to say, I do like Riley Kugel, and I like him more every time. I've liked him from the third game he played here. As a guy, I thought, I'm not a talent scout, but I just like his game. I like the way he played, where he handled the ball, he handled himself. He looks nimble, like he knows what he's doing out there. And he had a nice game tonight. At times, he hit some threes that got him right back in it. And I was, quite frankly, almost shocked that they were leading in halftime. Were you?
Well, yeah, especially considering they were down 15, more than halfway through the first half.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, an inspiring effort. It's good to see, but clearly, they're down their best player, and if they're playing, and Kentucky is, they're an NCAA tournament team right now, barely,
Yeah,
but
barely.
they are a tournament team, probably a 10 seed in all the bracketologists brackets right now. And so it's a tough ask for the Gators to beat an NCAA tournament team, even though Kentucky's having a down year for them.
Yeah. And Shebe had a game tonight that he didn't have the first time they played because obviously there's no Castleton, but Shebe was awesome. When he gets on the board in the glass like that, I mean, it's tough to beat that team. And when they're shooting their shots. So let's get to the really heart of the big story today.
Okay.
How surprised were you that Florida's defensive coordinator took a job and went to Arizona today?
Well, I'm surprised that he was thought highly enough to be hired by an NFL team, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing that surprised me. But it's a very young coaching staff. First time head coach who's hired two coordinators, one who's 29, the other who I think is 34 or 35. So, I was surprised that that Tony was thought of that highly, to be honest with you. I mean, what do we know about Armstrong? We know he's thought highly enough that he's worked for Kirby Smart and Nick Saban had just hired him. Classy move by Saban, by the way, 9 days later to let him leave because he got a promotion offer somewhere else. All right.
Yeah, that was classy. And I had frankly never heard of the guy, but that doesn't mean anything. A lot of guys I never heard of. And I see defensive coordinators in the NFL I've never heard of and seen before. They're so young now. But this one kind of surprised me because of the timing. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think Gator fans are crushed by Tony leaving because what did he do last year? His defense wasn't very good. I'm not saying he wouldn't have been, maybe, but we'll never know that. But it's unusual to see a guy leave as defensive coordinator of a school like Florida and get a job in the NFL when he's not even, 35 years old or whatever. And I was surprised, and then to have the tight end coach Piegler basically follow him there. So two coaches. Now, I got to take on this, but I'm going to hold back for a minute and hear you out completely about where you see things going in Gainesville with the program, your concerns, things that you might, what will you be watching for in the spring? Like we all will, be like quarterbacks. But besides that, what's the overall view of Florida right now?
Well, they're in transition. I mean, when you've had back-to-back 6 and 7 seasons, I mean, you can't claim that you're anything more than that. I mean, quite frankly, the last 2 years were similar to the 2 years Mike Norvell had before this past season. I mean, they were slightly better, slightly, but not much. And so obviously Gator fans, don't know if it's going to happen in 2023, but certainly by 2024, they got to have a big push here. They got to get into the 9-10 win club, and quite frankly, the roster has to become better. It has to be better to the naked eye, buddy, so that even the casual Gator fan can go, it looks like we got some players again. And right now, I think even the casual Gator fan can go, wow, we don't have enough good players. All right, we just don't. I mean, the other teams, the upper echelon teams, have a far better roster than we have. I will say this, even if you don't know anything about the coaching staff, the fact that Billy Napier put a staff together and an NFL franchise plucked two of his assistants away coming off a nondescript year, even if you don't know anything about the coaches, it should say to you, well, Napier put a staff together that other people thought was fairly impressive because they're hiring people off his staff, and that's off a 6-7 season. So
very good point.
If I'm a Gator fan, okay, I'm thinking, well, at least other people in the industry think our head coach knows what he's doing.
Yeah, those are good points. The flip side of that would be, and I'm trying to look at the whole spectrum here, because I tend to get a little too positive, and you call me down on it sometimes, and I have to back off. Is that you might say, well, okay, a critic, someone who might look at Scott Strickland and say, what have you done for me lately, without any long-term view, would say, Scott, your coaches aren't doing so great that you hired. Obviously baseball program. By the way, they won tonight again. They beat USF, I think, 8-3, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I got something to say about that in a minute, about the uniforms. But so how, there are people who say, okay, well, show me something. You had a world-class quarterback this past year. And by the way, as you saw, some of the projections for Anthony Richardson are getting outrageous on the draft. I mean, CBS has him number 1. I mean, come on, man. I was get criticized for putting him in the first round 3 months ago. But anyway, so I'm just saying, okay, so now what do we got here? What are we looking at? And you have a good level head. You tend to be more objective. You do your show with Miller, not Jack Miller, the quarterback, by the way, just in case you want to know. And you look at it a little more globally. Can you see where Gator fans might say, when am I going to get something to get excited about?
Well, I could definitely see a Gator fan going, well, wow. We're only 1 year in on the football program. Too early to make a decision, but early results were not, happy, joy. We're 1 year into a new basketball coach, and the results are also, not happy, joy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the women's basketball hire from the get-go, and that's his second hire at that job. Why he didn't even interview the FGCU head coach, who has just won his 25th game for the 13th consecutive year.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even interview that coach, who's 250 miles to the south.
Right.
I mean, that was absurd. I mean, literally absurd.
Yeah.
So, listen, Strickland's going to be judged by Napier and the men's basketball coach, and he's going to hopefully get 2 more years to be judged. But if next year for both programs are as mediocre as this past first year for both programs, then Scott's going to have to hope he gets to see the 2025 football season. In my opinion, he's done a good job at raising funds and upgrading the facilities, which desperately needed to be done. Desperately. But so far, the coaches and the programs that are carrying the water at the University of Florida are coaches and programs that he didn't hire, correct?
Yes. That's some pretty good ones in place, and correct, yes. But the coaches he hired, and I like his basketball coach a lot, Kelly Finley, but she's got some running to do too. Um, Todd Golden get a lot of good reviews, but 14-14 ain't setting the world on fire. Even though if you do good, even though you give good effort like tonight, and then we've got this, like you said, it's not just one losing season, but two in a row, including Billy. So it's legitimate to say, where are we going here? What are we doing? And when will I see some results? So then you begin to question the hires and the coaches. I go back to the core. I think I can somewhat speak for you. I like Billy Napier a lot. I think he's an excellent coach. He may be a little bit too much Saban-esque. I'm hearing things about his way he operates. Just like everything he's doing is like a carbon copy of Saban.
Here's the real problem that I see it for Billy.
All right.
Is lately there's been a trend, and you saw this at Florida with Urban. Year 2, usually if you've hired the right coach, you see dividends paying off in year 2. Now, there are certain coaches in year 2 that have won national championships. I'm not holding Billy Napier to that standard. Okay. But usually lately, the new head coaching hire, football and basketball, by their second year, you see a breakthrough. Look what just happened to Tennessee in year what? 2. Remember when Nick went undefeated in the regular season? When? Year 2, after a 7-6 year 1. We all know Urban's year 2. So that to me is the difficulty for Billy Napier next year. I don't know that the program is in a position to have a 9-3, 10-2 regular season. But I could see where a bunch of people, if they have another 7-win season, say, is going to go, 2 years in and we're playing 500 football. I mean, no offense.
Yeah.
You can look around elsewhere. I mean, even Beamer at South Carolina.
Right,
it's like, I mean, that's the pressure and the expectations. Like, I think, buddy, it's important for Florida to get to 8.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
it's not just important; it's critical. I think.
You look around the country, and usually within the first 2 seasons, the really good hire produces a result that the fan base can go, okay, we got it right.
Right. I'm with you on that. Okay, let's shift gears for a second and go to rules.
Okay.
You and I have had these discussions over the years about a lot of things in the game we like and don't like. This is not the final or necessarily all the rules that will be adapted. But you saw the list of what they're going to change out there. And I can be honest, I started looking at it, and I started thinking about, I don't want them to start messing with the clock, too much. But when they tell you you've got to squeeze some minutes out of the game, and you're not going to get them from halftime, or the band director or anybody else, and so you're going to have to figure out how to get them out of the game. That means plays, and there's only one way to do it. Of all these things, the ones that clock would no longer stop on first down, except the last 2 minutes of each half. Clock would run on incomplete passes after ball is spotted, except for the last 2 minutes of each half. Consecutive timeouts would be outlawed. No more untimed downs when a quarter ends on a defensive penalty. Instead, the next play would open the following quarter. Okay, let's stop with that. Anything there that resonates with you, good or bad?
Well, the whole untimed down thing. I mean, listen, I work 15 college games a year.
Mm-hmm. No,
that may happen twice all season. So that's, whatever. The whole not being able to call back-to-back timeouts, I like that for twofold.
I'm with you on that. I like that too.
I don't think you should be allowed to do that. First off, if you call a timeout and huddle, and then you can't get the next play off in time and you're, threatening to call another timeout to avoid the delay of game, well, that's on you. I mean, you just had a 60-second timeout. You can't get the next play off on time. I think you should be penalized. And the other thing is, okay, we iced the kicker. We got it. Okay. But, we're not doing this 2, 3 times. I mean, you ice the kicker, that's great. Now let's kick the damn ball. So I don't have a problem with that one either. I'm totally against the whole we're going to keep the clock moving like it's soccer, even after an incomplete pass, basically, once the ball is set back up again. I hate that rule. All right. Here's, buddy, the NFL clock, if you will,
Okay.
produces 63 plays a game on average. The average NFL team runs 63 offensive plays a game.
Okay.
The average college team this year ran 69 to 70. So we're talking 6 to 7 plays per team. We're talking about if they were to switch from the current college clock to basically the NFL clock, they're reducing the game by 12 to 14
Right.
snaps.
Right.
Okay. The average NFL game this year was the longest it had ever been, was 3 hours and 12 minutes. The average college game this year, take the weather delays out of it. There's a stat out there about weather delays. Take the games that were impacted by weather out. The average college game this year was 3 hours and 23 minutes. There's an 11-minute difference between an NFL game and a college game. Well, 7 of those 11 minutes are halftime. The NFL halftime's 13 minutes, the college halftime's 20. Okay? Then, but on top of that, buddy, the NFL game starts at 1:01. College games don't start at 12:01 or 3:31. Okay? Another way that they could tighten it up is they
take
could
that
say
7 minutes out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, they could say to the net, like at CBS, when I first started with them, we kicked off at 3:38. Well, now we're routinely kicking off at 3:42, 3:43.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm with you on that.
Okay.
I think absolutely.
So we're kicking off late, which is unnecessary.
Right.
The fans know who's playing. They get it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's kick the damn game off. Okay. But I do think the college game is a little too long. You know that. We've argued about it. I would love for them to go to the NFL clock. I would. Okay. Now I know that, and I get it, and no one is wrong if they go, I don't want my college game looking and feeling like the NFL game. I get it. I do. For whatever reason, though, to me, 3:23, that's a long time. And that's the average game. All right. Never mind how these games seemingly are 3:30, 3:40. Remember, it's 3:23, and that's factoring in Army, Navy, and Air Force playing 2-hour and 50-minute games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in favor of them going to the NFL clock. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in favor of them running the clock nonstop. That, to me, is ridiculous.
Yeah, because that's kind of the thing about there's a lot of things you can do. Like, there are things, this doesn't count against the game. But, if you want to get the game going, warm-ups could be shorter. You don't have to have all the time for warm-ups. You can take 5 minutes out of that. Move everything ahead by 5 minutes. Whatever. You can do things like that.
I will say this. If the average team is running 69 or 70 plays, let's call it 70. That's 140. Yeah. Well, if we reduce it by 14 plays, we're reducing it by – we're going to lose 10% of the game. Okay, is that too much for you? And I don't just mean you. I mean for everybody watching right now. That basically, if they go to the NFL clock, you're going to lose 10% of the snaps that you get right now. You're going to lose about a half a quarter of football. You're going to lose 6 or so minutes of game action. Probably a series for each team. That's essentially what you're going to lose if they go to the NFL clock. Is that too much, or is that something you can live with? I can live with it. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, this is a television product, and these games have to fit in that 3.5-hour window. Mm-hmm. And between the halftime, between the games not starting promptly, and now because the games are going so long, these games are not coming close to fitting in the 3.5-hour window, and that's a problem.
Why are they so much longer, David?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. There's more throwing than ever before, and There's more offense than ever before. And in college, they stopped the clock, even briefly, for first downs. And we've had more first downs than ever before. So we have more incompletions and more first downs than we've ever had before. So I think it's natural that the games would be longer.
All right. In terms of what's wrong with the game, and I think I'd like to see him address. We have to take a quick break. I'd like to see him address this issue of what's wrong, and then shrink the game around it.
Okay.
And that is, we know the replay. Forget the actual time, how long they are. The replays are taking too long. They're just taking too long. I'm sorry. I don't know if you watched any XFL or not.
I did.
Kind of interesting.
I watched that.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it when they went to Blandino live.
Because
here's the other thing. Even though the one replay, and I don't know if you saw the game, but it was whether it was an interception or a touchdown. It looked like simultaneous possession.
Yeah, tough call. Tough call.
Very tough call. Okay, and that replay took over 2 minutes. But because they gave us Blandino on camera mic'd, it was such good television.
Could understand it. And I had no problem with it that time.
Exactly. We were unaware that they took 2.5 minutes.
Right.
Because it was compelling television. So, buddy, I'm with you. Larry here also. The replays are too damn long. To me, you got to do one of two things. Either you just say, hey, you got 90 seconds. Sorry, the clock's running. Go. Okay. Or you got to make it so that it's television. You got to make it entertaining. We got to put cameras and microphones in there. You got to be transparent.
Show us.
Yes. And then if it's a 2-minute, 20-second review, but we're actually seeing it with them, it won't feel that long and it'll actually be entertaining.
Yeah. There's some elements. I have to see a few more games of the 2-point, 3-point conversions I kind of like. A game was actually decided by the 3-point conversion to the scores. And they actually they got made it a one-score game, and they won. I forget what game I watched a lot of them, but there was remember the game?
Yes, they scored. They went for the 3-point conversion to try to get to within 3. They converted. But then also, and this is a rule, Greg Schiano proposed this when he was head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks for the NFL 10 years ago, in which he said, make it 4th and 15. That instead of having the onside kick, which A, very few of them are recovered anymore, and B, it's a dangerous play, allow the team who wants to keep the ball to run a play, but it's 4th and 15, and they have to convert it. And if they don't, then the other team will take over. And think about it. You put your quarterback on the field. You put your receivers on the field. It's a play. It's exciting. And the team that was trailing in the XFL, buddy, by 3 converted the 4th and 15, which serves as the onside kick, kept the ball, drove down, and won the game.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So I want to get this in. Titan MRI sponsors our special guest, David Moulton, and they promised to buy him dinner if he ever comes down from Jacksonville.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks, Jeff Cardoza, and we're going to bring our young star intern in here with you. And I want to ask you first about golf. I mean, I know you had to watch the Genesis.
Absolutely.
And I watched more golf as it worked out because of Tiger being at the other end. We saw a lot of Tiger. And I thought to myself, after that Thursday round, when those guys, did we talk about that last week? We didn't talk about it. No, that was some magnificent golf, and I was so happy to see it. I thought, you know what, this thing's going to be all right, despite LIV. Did you agree with that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to have that field playing every week,
yeah, well, you're not, of course.
Then yeah, and Tiger oh, by the
Oh
way,
yeah,
playing
right,
and looking the best he's looked since the car accident. I mean, let's be
right,
honest.
yeah,
So, yeah, that was fun. That was enjoyable.
yeah.
Unfortunately, look at the field this week at the Honda in Palm Beach.
Well, it never has been very good actually, and a lot not lately at least. So it hasn't been that
No,
great, but.
no.
But David, say hi to our young up and coming star here.
Oh, I know. No,
You know him. You've talked to him
he's about an
before.
hour and a half away from taking all of our jobs.
Kyle Curtis. He's been with us. How long, Kyle? A year and a half now, right? Something like that.
Yeah, we're coming. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
It's your
How you
chance
guys
to
doing?
ask Mr. Moulton some career questions if you want to. He's
I
hugely
think he's doing
successful.
okay.
Uh,
I have to admit, I think he's doing okay.
I'll take all the wisdom I can get.
yeah.
Well, I advise everybody under the age of 20, whatever, to get out. Okay. But then when they don't take that advice, I just say, well, just work your what off.
I'm afraid you're too late. This guy's hooked,
I
both
know.
on the media, both on this part of it,
I
where he's
know.
very good at, and also in writing and reporting. He's doing some excellent stuff. He's got a piece which I got to post tonight in the morning on Anthony Richardson. And amazing things that have happened, and he's kind of encapsulated.
Well,
Go ahead.
what do you think?
Me or
Okay,
him? Let him.
If you were an NFL team, would you take the plunge on AR?
Personally,
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm the general manager, you're an assistant, and I turn to you and I go, listen, I'm on the fence. Talk me in whatever direction you want to talk me. Okay. Either to grab it 'em high or stay in the heck away.
Me personally, I think that as Buddy, was talking about earlier with the number one pick, I think that's a little high. But in that middle first round area, I think
Okay.
the main
Detroit at 18 with their second first rounder. Would you do it?
love it,
So
and this is the reason
Washington
why.
at 16. Okay.
Love it. I think he's a top 15.
Okay. Would Carolina at 9? Would you
I
bite
think
that
that's
high?
the earliest he goes, and I think that there's still a little bit of I'm more convinced at the 15, 16, 18 range than the top 10. But I think the reason that he's getting a lot of looks is because Florida wasn't pretty this year by any means from top to bottom. Whether it's there were some games you got put out there and it looks like they didn't know what they're doing. There's stuff going on within the facilities, whatever. He was still able to go out there, perform, put up numbers, do stuff like that. And if you just see like scrolling through Twitter, just looking up Anthony Richardson's name, you're seeing stuff that you see. Um, no other scouts can do that stuff since I saw people saying that this is the best scout since Andrew Luck when it comes to mechanics and just natural ability. So I think that just based off that and just his pure potential and mechanics and his ability just to be that difference maker in one play is something that for a NFL team who maybe have similarities to a Florida football program who has gone through a lot of fire these past few years. Anthony Richardson might be able to come in, and he's been able to deal with that adversity through the Florida program and still be able to perform and maybe turn it into a winning culture. So I think right around that 12 to 20 range for a team who's hungry for a quarterback. And I wouldn't even be surprised if a team trades up and tries to snag him there early in the teens. So, but I would say 9 would probably be the earliest I see him. But
It's
yeah, that's kind of
interesting. You said 12 because Houston's second first round pick is at 12. And if you're the Texans and he's there, you obviously don't have a quarterback. You probably didn't take one at 2. Okay, maybe you
right.
did. Maybe you took one at 2. Maybe you traded up to 1 to take your quarterback. But if by chance you didn't and you went Jalen Carter or whatever at 2, and you're sitting there at 12 and Anthony Richardson's there, I'll bet you they would take the plunge. Because my guess is, buddy, Houston with those 2 picks, one of them will be a quarterback.
Who do you think will go number 1?
Well, I think Indianapolis will trade up, and I think they'll take C.J. Stroud.
Stroud. I love Stroud as a prospect. Yeah.
Just like you're talking about Richardson, like if you look at the LSU tape and the Tennessee tape, and you're like, well, I got to take this guy in the top 10 if you just look at those two games. If you look at the Georgia game, all right, and I love Bryce Young, okay, but Stroud's a little bigger, okay, and the plays he made against Georgia, quite frankly, not a lot of guys have made those plays in the last 2 years. Now, it helped. He's got 2 NFL tackles, and his number one receiver was the best player on the field. But Stroud was amazing against Georgia.
I completely agree.
I really liked this guy for a long time, David. You know that. I've talked about him forever, and I always thought he had great upside. I didn't know how he project. He didn't have a great year because of his decision making. His history for getting injured hurt him some. But like Shane Matthews says, his measurables are off the charts. And these guys fall in love with that stuff at this level. When you look at him, everything about him and his measurables, from the speed to the size, whatever, screams top 10. Screams top 10. But there's a disconnect somewhere that I don't know, that didn't seem to translate, especially in college. And then it makes you wonder this: if he's that good, how come Billy Napier didn't coach him better? You know,
but Josh Allen was pretty inconsistent at Wyoming too.
Yeah, true.
And Richardson, with his height and his measurables, is going to get compared to Josh Allen a lot. I mean, Allen was what, 54%, 56% at Wyoming.
Yeah, pretty low.
And he played 3 years at Wyoming. I mean, the percentage was not good, and that's the part that scares me. I'm going to take this guy in the top 10, and he was inconsistent on Saturdays. But
I love Josh Allen. I thought he was
I'm
terrific.
expecting him to be great on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's the thing you don't know. It's a gamble.
But I mean, if you put Richardson standing next to C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young,
yeah,
I mean, literally, they look like they should be like getting him water. They're so small compared to how big he is.
Yeah, it was under Stetson Bennett. So I think this late rush. And Kyle, you got your story talks about some of the things his past history in Gainesville, like working for the volunteer firemen and stuff like that, right? We hardly knew this kid. I really wanted to get to know him a little bit, but we didn't. Talk about your story and the personal stuff.
Yeah, so when he was in middle school, I guess his dream was to be a firefighter. So there was a program going on at the local school, but he wanted to make sure that it didn't, because he was also. I got to play against him in high school basketball. Living in Ocala, he went to Eastside, and that was a district matchup for us. And he was I remember we were in the locker room, and we're like, this guy, he could go D1 in basketball, he could go D1 in football. If he wanted to go play baseball, he could probably go D1 in that. So he wanted to make sure but he wanted to be a firefighter too. So he wanted to make sure that he could still have that balance in between. And he was able to, he got a mentor in this program through, Gainesville schools. And it was able to teach him like a lot of leadership skills, being able to work with a team, or being able to work under pressure and stuff like that. And, that's kind of a story that's popped up here as it always kind of does with a lot of these prospects leading up to the NFL draft, that kind of shows the true character of a person and stuff like that. And, it's just cool to see someone who is able to bring something outside of the football field, to a locker room, to a team and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of where the whole firefighter thing came with. And, that the picture of him with all in the firefighter gear in Gainesville with all those guys is something that, all my buddies always send around in college. It was a funny picture that was always sent around after, he always made a good play or something like that. It was Twitter famous there for a little while. I think it's just appealing to all those NFL GMs and execs who want to draft him, that, he's more than a football player and is able to bring more to the table than just being able to, run 20 miles per hour down the field or throw a ball 60 yards.
Do you have a moment in that basketball game that you're going to tell if he turns out to be a star NFL quarterback? Are you going to look at people?
Kyle dunked on him.
There was this moment where I caught the ball on the wing, all right, and I pump faked and I went right by him, And I
Yeah.
tomahawk jam or
there
everything.
was there was 2 minutes left in the half. We actually were playing him pretty well, and I was guarding the guy. It was a baseline passing on their end of the hoop, and I was guarding the guy passing in. And our coach, for some reason, he had us play our back facing to the person who was passing it in. So I'm under the hoop, back to the person who's passing it
He
in.
bounced it off you?
No, even worse. I see Anthony Richardson coming down the middle of the lane, and they throw a oop up to him, and I'm just sitting there under the rim. He luckily missed it, but I think I would have been on Sports Center the next morning if he made that.
So you were nearly
for the wrong reason.
Nearly posterized. And there was nothing I could have done.
So, hey, so I know David's got to go, but and Kyle, can thank you for a second. But speaking, I know you can't speak for all the students because they're all different. But I'd like to get Kyle's take on what they think of Napier, and if they're optimistic, if they're enthusiastic, how they're feeling about last year, this year, and the future. Kyle, give us your take on what you think your buddies at the ATO house are saying.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, after this season, the start to the season was obviously really good. The win at Utah was obviously massive, and I think that, left a good taste in everyone's mouth there for a few weeks and, gave him probably a little bit longer a leash for the rest of the season. But, super optimistic, I think, even maybe after the season, because, even being a Florida fan, we're very, quick to judge and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think everyone kind of understands it was not the prettiest scene when he arrived, and you got to give it a little bit more time. But I will say, I woke up this morning and my phone was blowing up with all my buddies asking about, Patrick Toney and stuff.
Well, let's
like
talk
that.
about that. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Blown up in a bad way or a good way?
It was more so kind of, I just think that everyone was kind of shocked because, you're reading through the media and stuff like that leading up to the season. This is the guy of the future, defensive mind for a long time, so under Saban, stuff like that, all good things. And, stuff you want to have in your program. And I think, and then you see 2 hours later that the tight ends coach leaves. So kind of just being, it's not that you're losing hope in Napier. It's more so just kind of like, what's going on? Are we able to kind of get this under control before we, get into the nitty gritty of being able to assemble a team to put out there when fall rolls around?
Yeah, and dilly to Freddie Weeby, by the way, too, while he's on here. I just wanted to say, David, I think what the surprised us most was the timing of this. And you made a great point about the plus side is here are NFL teams plucking members of Napier's staff, which tells you he did a pretty good job of hiring.
Right. If I'm a Florida fan, and obviously, you don't have an attachment to these coaches and you're kind of curious as to why it is that they left. Well, the fact that an NFL franchise thought enough of two members of your staff to pluck them, that would tell me, wow, I guess Napier knows how to hire good people. Now, it's too early to see the results. And if I'm a Gator fan, I have a feeling you're on the Mike Norvell timeline here. Norvell at 3-6, 5-7, then the breakthrough season. And buddy, I kind of feel that that's probably how it's going to go for Billy. 6-7, followed by, I don't know, 7-6.
Got to steal one somewhere.
But maybe they go 7-5 and win the bowl game.
Yeah,
so
maybe,
right. Best case scenario. But
Yeah.
then 2024 has to be.
Well, now you got your hot shot quarterback coming in.
Well, exactly, and then you've settled everything down. Now you've had your third recruiting class to fortify the roster, and
you got your guys in there.
Yeah,
totally.
Well, riddle me this, David, and you're a sage observer of football, and Kyle, you've been around a little bit too. But I've always studied offensive lines as a unit. I've always thought of offensive lines as like basketball teams, 5 guys playing together, knowing what each guy was going to do and when they were going to do it, and working that cohesion and timing together. And all of a sudden, there's a brand new cast of characters in the offensive line. They got a couple of guys coming back, but I would be a little concerned about the cohesion of that unit. Am I wrong, David?
Kyle, I'm concerned about that entire side of the ball. To be honest with you, I mean, the quarterback room will be new. The offensive line room will be largely new. I mean, I don't see how, and with a very challenging schedule and very challenging early also. I mean, they managed to get through September better than I thought they were going to last year. But, I mean, Florida, if you take a look at wins and losses from a year ago, Florida's playing a top 10 schedule in the country next year. So, and their program's not in a position to play a top 10 schedule in the country. It really isn't.
If you look at those solid groups kind of on that offensive end, the really only group that you look at and you're like, all right, I'm confident with that group is running backs. Outside of that, I mean, we have tight ends transfer out, wide receivers transfer out. I mean, outside of Ricky Pearsall, there's not really a go-to guy out there. There's not really a go-to guy on third down in the tight end slot. And then obviously with, quarterback, the quarterback has to be connected to everyone on that field. And then if you're going to stick a guy out there, first week, you have to be confident that he's connected with everyone else out there. And with question marks across the line with 3 or 4 different guys transferring in, first time in Gainesville, trying to settle in, moving into a college town's hard. You got to adjust. It's not just football. You got to be able to adjust to classes. You got to be able to adjust to, social environment, being able to gel with your team and everything like that. So it's more than just being able to perform on the field. So I think, outside of running backs, there's a lot of question marks. And I think now it's just kind of being able to, as Buddy said, just, being one unit.
Well, the reason I brought the offensive line up was the running backs, who are the strength of the team, and where you stand with wide receivers. Obviously, I mean, I think there's no question in my mind what Billy's trying to do is run the football. Right? We've established that with the size of the guys he's bringing in there and the way he's emphasizing this. I'm pretty sure he wants to go play action. Like Saban, whatever. Anyway, just a thought. Long way to go yet, but I have to build a team pretty fast. Spring ball starts in 2 weeks. They got to get their defensive coordinator here tomorrow and get started and a tight end coach. So, David, they got their work cut out for them, don't they?
Well, and at Utah, home for Tennessee, at Kentucky, before you even get to October 1. I mean, they have 5 games before October. Remember, last year it was, hey, make sure you start off no worse than 2-2, and they pulled it off. All right, this year, 3-2. I think you're going to be probably a 7 to 10 point dog at Utah. You're already listed as a 7 to 9 point dog at home against Tennessee. At Kentucky, you'll be a toss up. So, if you're 3-2 heading to October, that would be good. And then you have a chance, you got Vandy and who else? Vandy and at South Carolina, and then the bye week before Georgia. I mean, no
gimmies down there. South Carolina.
Well, then, mid-November at LSU, at Missouri, and your home games are Arkansas and Florida State. I'm telling you, exactly. I thought I saw it the other day. Based on one loss record from a year ago, I thought the Gators are playing the 4th hardest schedule in the country.
I think you told me that last week. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and LSU could be very good, by the way. So you just don't know. Gentlemen, it's been wonderful. David, thank you so much for your contributions tonight.
Kyle, continued success, Kyle. I look forward to reading your story tomorrow.
I appreciate you.
Why don't you stick Kyle for a minute? We'll let Mr. Bolton go to bed again. He's an old man. He's asleep.
Have a good night.
He has to get up at 4 o'clock.
Take care.
Thanks, David. Dave Bolton, always one of the best, I think. All right, Calster. Basketball tonight. I got to tell you, there were moments to be proud of now. There were.
I have to say, I agree. They never really gave up. When I looked at it at one point in the first half, it was 15-30.
This is over. They may lose by 30 points, right?
Yeah, I'd come back and they're going into the half of the lead, and you like to see that even with losing Castleton and stuff like that, they're still going to fight. I think we saw a lot out of Riley Kugel I think
Yeah.
I think that's a guy that you're going to be able to see in the NBA one day. I think that he's really established himself with Castleton going down. He's really stepped up. But still, I think that you're just kind of lacking that consistency and being able to run the offense and get into your stuff. So you're gonna with a team like that, you're gonna be able to see stretches where they look like they're unstoppable, and then other stretches where they can't seem to put the ball in the hoop. So I just think that Kentucky was probably a little bit better team tonight.
Well, no
But
doubt.
yeah,
I
I
mean, a
agree.
lot better when they rebound like that, especially on the offensive glass. And Speedway had a monster game, and he was due after all. He got embarrassed last time out. He was ready. I thought that the Gators answered a couple of rallies and fought hard. I know there are no moral victories. I'm not saying there should be, but that's the kind of effort that makes me believe that maybe Todd Golden has got his hand on this, and maybe this is going to be okay, because they responded, and he gave him no excuses. He said he's not going to just say, "Oh, okay, fine, lay down, boys." So I like that. That was a good thing. So Florida sports needs a little bit of a lift right now.
Yeah,
That
I was talking to my roommate earlier, actually Matt, who's been writing for us, and he was telling me, he's like, I don't think I can remember. And it's unfortunate that we're going here, but I can't remember the last time I think that the Florida football team and the Florida basketball team were under 500 in the same year. And
yeah.
it's just like ah.
Um,
So
well,
hopefully everything's trending, but
yeah, you have to just hang on. By the way, question for you. I'll let you answer Dan Bond. This question. What do you think? Will Florida
it
at
might
least make the NIT?
they'll make the NIT.
They got to have
They'll
a winning
definitely make the
record, don't
NIT.
they? Don't they
Yeah,
have to have a winning record?
yeah, they'll definitely make the NIT. Um, you know, I'll watch them. I'll definitely watch them.
It's come down to this, begging to get to the NIT, huh? Wow. Oh boy, it's what it is. All right, so it looks like we're not going to get Zach to report on the basketball game tonight. He's stuck in the press conference, but we'll finish this segment out and say goodnight. Tomorrow night we got the Orange Blue Blood show with our buddies Franz Beard and Lauren and Ben, and we'll talk more about the staff. It's so hard to know exactly what to expect when we don't even know who's going to be coaching the defense. You know what I mean? We hear, we read, and we see, but we don't know. We've never seen anything this guy's ever done. I haven't gone to YouTube and looked. I hear. Did you read all the bio material Brendan Martin assembled on this guy? Did you read it at all? Any his background?
On the new guy,
Yeah.
the on the Alabama inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
guess we don't know his name by now.
Austin Armstrong.
Yeah.
He's from Southern Miss.
He's the youngest defensive coordinator in the country at 28.
Yeah, and it was a lot. It reminds me a lot of the same stuff I was reading whenever Patrick Toney was coming in. It's the new up and coming mind of Florida or defense in general. Real young guy who's able to relate to the players, a players coach. He's familiar with Billy Napier. He's familiar with Patrick Toney and his system. I really don't expect the defense to change too much. It's more so just kind of a change of the guard, and more so I just hope that recruiting doesn't get too much affected by it. I'll make sure to monitor that and keep an eye on that.
Yeah, good.
And but yeah, the youngest guy, I think it kind of makes a statement. So
yeah. Brendan Martin gathers some material tonight for us. Armstrong coached under both Smart and Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning, during his graduate assistant days at Georgia, and includes shared history with Will Hall at NCAA Division II program, West Georgia, including other coaches, Cody Kennedy, Josh Aldridge, both of whom have broken through the coaching ranks this fall. Thank you. Napier and Armstrong's connection goes back to 2017 and 2018 when Armstrong served as a graduate assistant under Napier at UL. So that's so that all comes. So and like David, I mean, he knew who he wanted because he jumped in right away. He must have seen the Tony thing coming, don't you think? Because he was
Yeah,
prepared when it happened.
it all happened so fast though. I think I was reading the tweet last night, laying in bed. It was past midnight, and then I wake up this morning and it seems that there's already reports out that we have a new guy. So I was pretty shocked at how fast it happened, and from what I was told, I think that all the players found out this morning too. That was the case. So. Outside of Napier, I don't know if many people around the facility kind of knew it was coming, and
No surprise.
yeah, from what I was reading, Tony didn't really have much connection to the head coach and coordinators at the Cardinals right now. So maybe
It's a new guy
I
from
guess
Philadelphia. I talked to Coach Spurrier and to Shane today, and they didn't know a whole lot about him. We'll see. But I should mention, by the way, Mary Helen just asked me, Mary Helen McCullough on our regular this morning about Franz. Yes, Franz's story is already up there on Gator about the bio background and etc. We'll continue to drill down as we learn more, Kyle, about this guy. We're going to try to learn as much as we can about him, about the new players, and try to do a better job of telling you who they are as we get these interviews. And Kyle
yeah.
and his buddy Matt will also be on the beat at the ready, right?
As spring practice comes going up, I'm excited to talk to new players, new coaches, and get you guys information. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be coming here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, Dan Vaughn said Napier has a plan when the ice cream machine goes down. I'm sure he had a backup for his staff. There you go. Kyle, great job, buddy.
Guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Good job. And don't forget to read Kyle tomorrow. He's got his piece on Anthony Richardson, the wonder kind, the guy that who knew he might be the number one pick in the entire draft. I don't believe that, but that's what they're saying. All right, Kyle. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
All right. There's a bright young man there for you that's going to be, it's already doing great things, and we're doing more. So, all right. Looks like Zach was not able to make it out of the press conference in time, so we'll wait till tomorrow night. I don't guess there's much to break down the basketball game because it is what it was. Too much Sheed Bay. Good effort. Loved Riley Kugel and some other things about it. But shorthanded, and Sheed decided he wanted to make up for what happened last time. And so there you go. So I'll just go ahead and tell you folks about my friends over at Renstar Medical Research who've been supporting this show for a long, long time. And we are most appreciative of all of our sponsors, including Renstar. And, of course, the folks that we feature every night. Meldon Law, we won't back down, and TitanMRI.com, along with Renstar Medical Research. You can count on Renstar to be a solid citizen, as we do here in Ocala. Renstar has supported this city and this program, other things, for a long, long time, and we do appreciate all the things that they do for us. Also, the fact that they're looking after our health. I mean, what's more important than that? They're noted as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research center. They have medical trials all the time, cutting-edge clinical trials, as a matter of fact, and things that are indigenous to us that we have to deal with, like psoriasis, osteoarthritis, Alzheimer's, migraine, fibromyalgia, things here. And they offer opportunities for those of you who like to take part in the clinical trials, because I like to get local data too. You can give them a call, or you can go to renstar.net, find out more about what they've got, and maybe you want to participate, and time and travel can be compensated for. So, Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Tomorrow night, it's the Orange Blue Blood Show with Ben Troop, Brad Speard, Lauren Meadows. We'll get more information on the coaching situation then, hopefully. And thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. We're going to crash, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.